Hi, everybody. I was putting the link in the chat. Okay, just putting stuff up in the chat. People were blowing up the Ask Mr. Litt document and so badly I couldn't post on it. And I was telling them, please stop. Okay. Well, good to see everybody. Good to see everybody. Thank you, all four of you right now. Appreciate it. We're going to finish this book today, and we're going to start our new book on Monday. New book on Monday. We'll finish this today. Appreciate you coming in on it. All six of us now. I was late because I was digging and trying to get roly-polies myself. I found lots of good spots. I don't know if they burrow deeper when it's cold, but I couldn't find any. And I was like, whoa. So I set out some of those potato traps myself in some spots where there was leaves. My yard's really dry, but there's a couple of spots where it was really wet. And, all right, is that what we got? We got six of us. Everyone's just toasted from Ms. McCarthy's, or they're off playing Roblox or something. I don't know. Okay, well, thank you for being here. I will jump right in. Other people can catch it from the recording. All right, 7 of us now. Nice. The first thing they saw was the collapsed tunnel entrance. Remember yesterday, a rider dashed away just as they were pulling up to see Dad. And there was now a collapsed tunnel where a large hole had stood minutes before. There was now only a jumble of rocks and dirt. The air hung heavily with dust. Most of the shouting had stopped, but the foremen were still trying to organize the crew into long lines. One foreman saw the Tuckers pull up in the buggy. He rushed over them. Mrs. Tucker! Yes. How did you get here so soon? I don't understand. It's only been minutes. How did you know that Eli... And he stopped. I didn't know. Eli's trapped in there? He came this afternoon. We needed his help. What happened? Asked Flapjack. Someone set a charge too close to the support beams. The explosion knocked several of them out. Some men are trapped inside, about 8. Don't you worry. We'll get Eli out, though. We'll get them all out. Marjorie nodded dully. Winnie looked up at the huge pile of rubble. The crews were digging frantically, but they didn't seem to be making much at it. Winnie felt dizzy. Her father, trapped inside this mountain. Step aside, make room. It was Mr. Strobridge. His beard looked darker in the lengthening shadows. Winnie was glad to see him. He was in charge, right? He could do something. He started by shouting orders. Some men had brought up more pickaxes and shovels. Others tied ropes around some of the fallen timbers. Come on, thought Winnie, faster! What's going on? Mother asked. It looks like some things were being done twice. Why isn't everyone working together? White crews won't work with the Celestials. Why not? Said Winnie. Because they're from another place. That's all the reason they need. White workers are willing to boss the Celestials, but they won't work as a team with them. This is an emergency, though, thought Winnie. Winnie looked around anxiously, and she saw Lee standing quietly. Oh, I'm sorry, Winnie Tucker. I didn't mean to frighten you, said Lee. You look pretty frightened yourself, thought Winnie. Then she remembered what the foreman said. 8 or 9 men were trapped in the tunnel. Was one of them Lee's brother? My father's in there, she said. And Tom, said Lee. What if they never get out? What if they're already... Listen up, men. Digging will take hours or days. We don't have either. We may not even have minutes. Who knows how much air they have in there? We're going to have to risk blasting. That might just seal them in, though, said the foreman. It might, or might blow them to kingdom come. But what other choice do we have? Bring on the nitroglycerin. Workers carefully carried the explosive from the back of the nearby wagon. Flapjack whispered softly, "That's tricky stuff. It's a lot more powerful than gunpowder." The miners carefully put down the explosive. Winnie watched them closely. They seemed calm as they dug holes for their charges. The nitroglycerin was this oily yellow liquid. It didn't look like much. "Hold on, Papa, hold on," she said to herself. When the miners finished, they lit the fuses and everyone ducked. The explosion rocked the canyon. Minnie covered her ears. She peered through the dust. "How long? Come out, come on, how long?" They cleared away a bit with that first blast, but now suddenly another explosion rocked the landscape and 3 men were tossed into the air. They landed hard and they didn't move. "Confound it," Mr. Strobridge shouted. "I'll have Howden's hide." "Who's Howden?" Winnie asked Flapjack. "He makes the nitroglycerin for the railroad, but blaming him for the explosion is like blaming the candy maker for giving you a toothache." "What went wrong?" asked Mom. "One charge didn't explode on time. Said Lee, we use the nitroglycerin to bite the mountain. Sometimes it bites us back." "The fuse may have been set wrong until somebody jarred it." Other workers stepped forward cautiously with stretchers for the injured men. "I don't see anything." "That first blast just got things started. Now they'll dig for a while before blasting again." Lee was wringing his hands and looked nervous. He wanted to help, but the foreman already shooed him away twice. "I hate all this waiting," said Winnie. "Waiting is hard. It's my thing that my father talked about America much. The worst waiting for him came on his trip to America. The ship was so full no one could even lay down. There was fighting over food and space and sickness everywhere. But worst of all was the waiting. Days and days, days more to come. Men died from the smell, from this disease. And the smell was terrible. He wondered if he made a good choice. He had been poor in China, but China was home. Leaving was hard, and the voyage was harder. When he reached San Francisco, there was so much unknown, but at least the waiting was over. He'd never forget it, he told me. It took 1 more hour of digging before they were ready to blast again. "It's an upside-down day for sure, Papa, but it's not over yet." As the fuses were lit again, Winnie squeezed her eyes and looked away. The next explosion peppered everyone with pebbles and dirt. When the dust was clear, there was a small opening in the tunnel. Crews rushed forward and enlarged the hole. "We found them!" Everyone hushed, waiting for news from inside. So that went really fast. I don't know if you caught. They were able to blast a small hole with that second charge. "They're alive!" "Hooray!" shouted Winnie. She hugged Flapjack. She hugged her mother. She even hugged Lee. He hugged her back. They realized they were hugging and Jim quickly jumped apart. The crew stepped aside as the miners emerged from the hole. One was limping, another was favoring an arm. Some were carried out on stretchers. "Tom!" Lee rushed to the side of the man on the stretcher. He was so covered in dirt Winnie couldn't get a look at him. "Eli! Papa!" Her father was being helped out of the tunnel. "Careful there. I think I broke something." The next few minutes were filled with hugs. Before they were done, it was hard to tell who was wearing most of the dirt. Winnie tried to say something, but the words got stuck in her throat. "I think you're going to need a bath," she said. He clutched his side and he smiled. "I think we all will." For once, Winnie didn't mind the idea of a bath at all. Chapter 11. What Winnie always remembered afterwards was the doctor's office. It had a few chairs, a table, a sink in a corner. Winnie couldn't read any of the labels on the bottles. The room had a funny smell. Still, she was happy to be there with her father. She had to wait while the doctor changed her father's bandages. One time, Winnie asked the doctor about Lee's brother, Tom. "Tom? Tom who?" "Tom Cheng." "Oh, one of the Celestials. Is he okay?" "Well, no." Winnie had once seen the bodies of 2 Chinese workers who had died, and they were laid out and covered with a rice mat. No, he didn't die. but he'll probably be all right. How was he when you saw him? Oh, I didn't examine him, said the doctor. But he was in the tunnel with my father, and he was carried out in a stretcher. Yes, I'm sure he was, but I don't treat Celestials. Why not? They work for the railroad, doctor. It's company policy. The Celestials have their own ways, and they have their own medicine. I'm sure he's doing fine. Winnie wasn't satisfied. She later asked her father about it. What was the railroad doing for these injured Chinese workers? I don't know, Winnie. You heard the doctor. They probably have their own ways. Probably something to do with vegetables, said her father. Winnie might have been smiling when the summer began, but she wasn't smiling now. But they were hurt as much as you. Doesn't the railroad care? The railroad has a lot of things on its mind, Winnie. Winnie, let's talk about this another time. Her father was tired a lot that week, but after a few days, he was up and around. The way Mrs. Swanson has fed me, I'm going to have ribs. My ribs are going to grow back bigger just to fit my stomach. These bandages sure feel tight. They're around his chest and his stomach. It's kind of like a corset. We wear them all the time, Eli. I suppose so. I don't know how women breathe in those corsets. They don't. That's the problem. Winnie, I'm out of thread. Would you run down to the store and get another spool? I want to finish your dress. The general store had changed little over the summer. Except for the appearance of a few winter goods, this could have been the day she arrived. The candy was still the same, too. Try the peppermints, a voice said behind her. It tastes like winter in your mouth. It was Lee. How are you? He looked a little bit thinner than before. I'm well. How's your brother? He's better. He's already back to work. But he must need time. No work, no pay. Railroad's always in a hurry and summer's ending. I know. I'm going home in a few days too, Lee. You return to the house with the garden? Yes. And school, too. I've always wondered about school. I've never been to one. Wow, well, you're lucky, Lee. Perhaps, but I don't always feel lucky. My father says the railroad will be done in another year, maybe even 2. What will you do then? There will be railroads to build for many years. I cannot think more than that. The storekeeper came up and cried, Hey! I've warned you before. Stop bothering my customers. Lee started saying, I meant no, but then Winnie butted in. Excuse me. He wasn't bothering me. And as near as I can tell, he wasn't bothering you or anyone else. Now see here, young lady. Don't worry, she said, deciding the spool of thread would have to wait. There won't be any trouble. My friend Lee and I are leaving. And the storekeeper stood there gaping with his mouth open while they walked out the door together. Chapter 12. The train whistle blew once. Eli Tucker was helping Marjorie and Winnie up onto the train. Their luggage was already on board. Time to go, said Eli. He gave Winnie a kiss. You take care of your mother, all right? So the father's staying because he's still got to work the tunnel. Winnie nodded. It was hard to believe she was going home. Rose and Julia were waiting. It would be good to see them. Still, her railroad summer had passed too quickly. Cheer up, Winnie. You'll like school, I'm sure. Take care, Marjorie. I'll see you in a few weeks. Don't forget to shave, Papa. What's that? It's hard to hear you over the engine noise. Never mind, Papa. The train shuddered for a moment. Let's go sit down, said Mrs. Tucker. I think I'll watch from here, said Winnie. I'll come in after we leave. All right, dear, but just for a minute. The train started up. Winnie took a last look at Cisco. The row of low buildings hadn't changed much during her stay, and soon the railroad would be moving its supplies. To the other side of the mountains, her father said. Farther and farther, with so many miles to go. Wasn't that like someone coming down the street? What was he carrying? It looked like Lee, she saw. He seemed to be running for the train. Wait, he cried, wait! The train was still moving slowly, that Lee could catch it. What are you doing? I brought you something, he shouted. He ran alongside the train car and handed her a package. It's a gift! He fell back, panting for breath. When he unwrapped it, it was a kite made of red paper and wood, and it looked like a dragon. Thank you, Lee! It's beautiful, she called out from the train. He waved goodbye and nodded. Winnie waved too, and as the train gained speed, she tied the string to the railing and she released the kite from the platform. The red dragon kite twisted and turned and rippling in the air, and its wings steadied and it rose higher. There it stayed, the paper dragon flying above the iron dragon, proudly flying over the tracks that ran west to the mountains and then finally east to the sea. And there we go. There's the last illustration. I don't know if you can see Winnie on the back of the train. There's like Winnie on the back of the train right there. See? Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. I'm trying to show it. There we go. And there's Lee. And there's Winnie. And there's Lee. And there's the dragon kite. So that is the end of the book. The Iron Dragon Never Sleeps. She got to tell the store person off. Did it make a big change for the store person's life? Probably not. But she stood up for that moment. Let's look for just a second here. I don't know if I can bring this up. Let me see if I can bring this up. No, I can't. Thing about the streaming software, if you don't have a program open before you started it, you can't open it into it. I was going to try to show Promontory Point, and when the railroads finally did meet. I'll look it up on my second computer over here. Hold on. So the railroads did finally meet in Promontory Point, Utah. And you might have seen this in movies or other books. It's kind of this iconic meeting of the two train lines and closing the Intercontinental. It was on May 10th, 1869. So they're 2 years away from it at this point. The presidents of the Union Pacific and Central Pacific Railroads met in Promontory, Utah, and they drove the last spike in a ceremony into the rail line that connected their railroads. This made transcontinental railroad possible for the first time in United States history. So you couldn't necessarily, you could take a train from St. Louis, which is on the Mississippi, to California. And there was a lot of ways to get to St. Louis. Some of them were train, wagon, Mississippi, but you could finally basically get across the United States in a train. And they said that took, 5 days instead of a year. Here, I'll try to show the picture. I don't know if this works. I don't know if that's going to work so good. But if you look up Promontory Point, they drove a gold spike uniting the two railroads. And it was a ceremony. And then, of course, they took that spike right out. They weren't going to leave there. Somebody was going to take it. Okay, it's 11:10. Get a stretch. I do have some math activity. I have some 3D drawing that I want to do. And we have a math accuracy kind of contest. So I'll see the 5th grade 11:45, 4th grade at 11:15. I I have some 3D drawing that I want to do, and we have a math accuracy kind of contest. So I'll see the